Morning, my name is David Moore. I'm the police chief in Janesville, and to my right is Lieutenant Mark Ratzloff, who is in charge of our Detective Bureau, and to my left is Sheriff Troy Knutson of the Rock County Sheriff's Department. On behalf of Janesville Police Department, we want to extend our concerns to the victim's family in this matter. We can't imagine your loss, and to Precision Drawn Metals for their traumatic event that they had to endure yesterday. This is the first homicide for the city of Janesville in 2022. Our last homicide was in May of 2021. In a few moments, Lieutenant Ratzloff will walk you through the events of yesterday. And I think you will sense the training that was behind the response that we had to this event. We have spent a lot of time training for workplace violence events, and I think you'll see that presented here in a few moments. The suspect in this matter is a Kevin Luther Todd, age 23, of rural Evansville. Mr. Todd alleges that there was some bullying in the workplace, although that is not supported by any statements we've taken from employees or their management. It was Mr. Todd's 7th day on the job at Precision Drawn Metals. And certainly with that small number of days working, it's hard to identify or intercede if in fact there were any bullying in the workplace. Many of you heard me talk about conflict and how we know that precedes violence. Every violent event that occurs in this city, we reach back and look at what led up to it. And in most cases, there was some level of conflict that led up to it. And we always urge our citizens to reach out, ask for our assistance, put that responsibility on us to address that conflict and hopefully avoid it. This was a pretty unique circumstances at Precision Drawn Metals in that there was just limited contact with the suspect with his few number of days that he worked, and there's some sincere questioning if there in fact was any bullying in the workplace. I'd like to offer my thanks to the Rock County Sheriff's Department and their assistance that they provided us on scene and apprehending Mr. Todd. Also, our chaplains and critical incident staff have been assisting the family last night, and we're also meeting with Precision Drawn Metals and assisting them with chaplains and critical staff today as their staff moves forward with this traumatic event. The Janesville Police Department also stands ready for any other businesses in our community. We have extensive training that we can offer for workplace violence prevention in the workplace. Feel free to contact us and we can provide that training. And to that, I'm going to turn the podium over to Sheriff Knutson.
Good morning. Again, I'm Sheriff Troy Knutson. On behalf of the Rock County Sheriff's Office, I'd like to offer our condolences to the friends and family of the victim in this tragic situation. The other thing that I would like to mention this morning is my extreme appreciation for all of the cops who responded to this difficult situation last night. Certainly, this was a dangerous situation, and for all of those who responded both to the scene and in trying to track down the suspect and get him apprehended, they took on a certain personal risk to their safety, and I appreciate that. And they do that for the good of the community, and it means a great deal to me. I'm exceptionally proud of the work that they did last night in restoring order to our community as quickly as they did. Thank you.
As Chief Moore said, I'm Lieutenant Mark Ratz of the Janesville Police Department. I'll go over the investigation with you. Some information is not going to be released. There are certain parts of this that are still under investigation, and we certainly want to comply with Marcy's law. This occurred on Tuesday, April 26th, yesterday, around 4:30 p.m. at Precision Drawn Metals at 1345 Plainfield here in Janesville. Officers were sent to that location. The 911 call said an employee had been shot in the back. Here's a map of the location. It's just a little bit south of Highway 14 on the north end of Janesville. A satellite view of it gives you a little bit more perspective of the location. Here's Precision Drawn Metals. The yellow X is roughly the area where the victim was located in the building, and the green X is where the suspect exited the building. Call came in to 911 at 4:32 p.m. 4:33, dispatch gets the information they have an employee that was shot in the back. Employees report the suspect had left the building on foot. We got conflicting information. We had information that the suspect had left on foot, but we also had other callers saying they were possibly still in the building. Employees identified the suspect as being a co-worker, and then at 4:34 p.m., suspect description was given to dispatch, and an employee started CPR on the victim. At 4:35 p.m., I believe it was Sergeant Holford was the first to arrive on scene. He identified many people exiting the building in the parking lot. He radioed the next arriving officer to escort paramedics into the facility. He cleared the corridor for any obvious threats. Not locating any, he advised that the crime scene was now a warm zone and that the paramedics could be escorted in by officers implementing a rescue task force concept. It's a concept that we've been teaching here at Janesville PD with Rock County and our law enforcement partners as well as the fire department. So I think that was extremely beneficial in getting the resources to the victim. Unfortunately, the level of his injuries didn't allow them the time to save the victim's life. At 4:38 p.m., they're also setting the perimeter around the building. They requested Rock County's assistance with that, and they identified the staging area, kind of following critical incident response, incident command system at the Spectrum business across Kennedy Road. At 4:40 p.m., officers start their first protective sweep of the building. And then at 4:54 p.m., suspect plate number and vehicle information is given out to law enforcement. A request was made for Rock County Sheriff's Department to check the suspect's address in Evansville, which was the registered address on his license plate. 4:57 p.m., dispatch is contacting the area businesses to tell them to shelter in place, that we had a shooting nearby and the suspect's location is unknown at that time. At 5:01 p.m., the first protective sweep of the building is completed by law enforcement. Suspect vehicle information shared with all southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois law enforcement. Also, detectives, evidence techs, and street crime units start arriving on scene. We got lucky, I guess, on this. We had several people at training, and as they were leaving training, they heard this call come in. They checked in with supervisors and asked where they needed to respond. We had two other officers who were out of town at training, and they were just coming back into town. They also heard it and checked in with supervisors asking where they were needed and what they needed to do. So having that additional resources of people that were not working it but on training and available to respond was instrumental in the success of this. Witness interviews and evidence collection started about the same time. At 5:07 p.m., the secondary sweep of the building is completed. So what's going on there is officers are searching the entire building looking for the suspect to either take them into custody or make sure they have exited the building. And they do an initial sweep and then they follow up with a secondary sweep to make sure they haven't missed anything. At 5:13 p.m., suspect vehicle is located at Highway 213 and Highway 11 by Rock County Sheriff's deputy and an Orfordville Police Department officer. A short pursuit was initiated, and then the suspect pulled over. Interesting part about this is when we interviewed the suspect and asked him about this specifically, he said, I wasn't trying to flee. The area where they were trying to stop me has a lot of hills, and I drove to an area that was flat because he didn't want to put the deputies at risk of other traffic when he did stop. So kind of interesting point. At 5:17 p.m., suspect pulls over, complies with law enforcement, is taken into custody. From the time the 911 call comes in to the time the suspect's in custody is about 45 minutes. So again, thanks to our Sheriff's Department partners and Orfordville Police Department for the successful capture of the suspect. Later last night, several search warrants were written. One was written for the suspect's house in Evansville. He was first seen in and around the area of where he lived. We didn't know at that time if he had gotten back to his house and or had left. We made contact at the house. Sheriff's deputy advised the grandmother was at the house and said he had been there, came in for a short period of time and left. So search warrant was drafted for the house, not knowing what he may have left there that may be relevant to our crime. From the house was seized handgun accessories and ammunition. We know that through the investigation, the weapon used was a handgun, so that's what we're looking for, things related to the crime. When the vehicle was stopped, the vehicle was secured, towed back here, and secured here as well, and then a search warrant was written to search the car. The search warrant was written last night. We actually searched the car this morning. As a result of that search, we found 6 firearms, including the suspected murder weapon, ammunition, a small amount of marijuana, and over $2,000 in cash. The victim is male. He's 30 years old. He's a Janesville resident. The injury was a gunshot wound. The suspect, male, is 23 years old and an Evansville resident. The two are known to each other. As Chief Moore said, they worked together for about 7 days. The suspect alleged that he was being bullied, but again, we don't have any collaborating information from any of the witnesses confirming that. Kevin Luther Todd, 23 years old, of Evansville. He's our suspect. Charges are first-degree homicide and first-degree recklessly endangering safety while armed, 3 counts. The recklessly endangering safety comes from, as he's shooting in the building, bullets are ricocheting around and came very close to striking other people in the building. So that's where those 3 counts of recklessly endangering safety while armed come from. Todd is currently being held at the Rock County Jail, and you know, just a disclaimer there that, you know, this is only preliminary. He still has to appear in court, and that will happen here shortly. Here's a picture of suspect Kevin Todd. And contact information if you need it or need to contact us for anything else.